Digital Euro War, ECB's secret October 2025 move. Buckle up because I just spent the last 72 hours down a rabbit hole that connects banknote printers, your smartphone's NFC chip, and why Apple fought the European Central Bank in court and lost. October 23, 2025 wasn't just another date. It was the day Europe officially declared financial war on dollar dominance, and almost nobody in crypto caught it. Here's the kicker. While you were watching meme coins, the ECB activated infrastructure that makes the digital euro launch in 2029 look like a formality rather than a maybe. Let me break down what actually happened, because this changes the game for anyone holding XRP, anyone living in Europe, and frankly, anyone who thinks they understand how money works. The phone call that changed everything. Picture this. October 23, 2025. Someone at the European Council makes a phone call to Christine Lagarde. Not a suggestion, not a recommendation, a directive. Accelerate the digital euro. We're out of time. What nobody's telling you is why they're out of time. So I did what I always do. I pulled the trade data. And here's where it gets wild. Between January and July 2025, Europe moved 1.57 trillion euros in exports outside the EU. That's not billion with a B, that's trillion with a T. Now, common sense says Europeans should be getting paid in euros for European goods, right? Wrong. According to Eurostat's invoicing currency breakdown, 50% of European imports are being paid for in US dollars compared to only 41% in euros. Think about this. Europe has its own currency, its own massive economic bloc, and yet half of what they buy, they're paying American banks to process. That's not trade, that's tribute. But wait until you hear the part that made my jaw drop. Remember when everyone said the Chinese yuan was irrelevant in global trade? Well, following the Russian sanctions in 2022, China-Russia bilateral trade exploded to 1.7 trillion yuan, about $237 billion, and get this, 40% of it settled in CNY. 3 years ago, that figure was less than 2%. Now pay close attention to what's happening here. This isn't market forces. This is forced financial migration away from systems the West can monitor. The EU is watching entire trade corridors evaporate from their visibility. And that October phone call? That was panic. The 78% purge nobody talked about. Let me tell you a story about regulatory strategy that'll make your head spin. You remember MiCA, that crypto regulation everyone said would protect consumers? Well, here's what actually happened when it went fully live in 2024. Statistics from exchange compliance reports show approximately 78% of stablecoins previously circulating in the EU required reclassification or faced outright delisting. 78%. But here's where it gets interesting. Tether, the world's largest stablecoin with hundreds of billions in circulation, looked at the EU's e-money institution licensing requirements and basically said, nah, we're good. So what happened? Circle's USDC, which did jump through every regulatory hoop, absorbed that liquidity like a vacuum. The paradox is chef's kiss perfection. Europe designed MiCA to foster European champions, and they accidentally handed the entire compliant stablecoin market to a Delaware corporation. This might blow your mind when you realize the setup. By crushing 78% of the competition through compliance costs only American megacorps could afford, Europe cleared the battlefield for the digital euro. It's not arriving into a free market, it's arriving into a desert they created. That's not regulation, that's strategic carpet bombing. The 3,000 euro magic trick. And here's where it gets wild with the technical wizardry. The ECB has this massive problem. If they launch a digital currency that's risk-free central bank money, every rational person would drain their checking account at Deutsche Bank or BNP Paribas and hold digital euros instead. That's called disintermediation, and it would collapse the commercial banking system overnight. So they invented something I initially thought was stupid, but the more I studied it, I realized it's genuinely brilliant. Or terrifying, depending on your worldview. It's called the waterfall and reverse waterfall mechanism. Here's how the waterfall works. They cap your digital euro wallet at 3,000 euros per citizen. But, and this is the genius part, if someone sends you 50 euros when you're already at your 3,000 euro cap, the transaction doesn't bounce. Instead, that 50 euros instantly spills over into your linked commercial bank account. The reverse waterfall runs the opposite direction. Let's say you're buying a used car for 4,000 euros, but you only have 3,000 euros in your digital euro wallet. The system automatically pulls the remaining 1,000 euros from your commercial bank account in real time and completes the payment. I'm speechless at what this actually accomplishes. The 3,000 euro cap becomes completely invisible to users. You can transact with millions of euros, but you can never accumulate more than 3,000 euros in state money. This effectively transforms the digital euro into a high-velocity payment rail rather than a savings vehicle. For anyone tracking the crypto implications, this overflow mechanism is programmable under the EU's PSD3 open banking regulation. Smart users could theoretically configure that overflow spillover to route into MiCA-compliant stablecoins or tokenized assets. The ECB just built an automated on-ramp from state money into the private crypto economy, and I genuinely don't think they've thought through that second-order effect. Hold on, because I'm about to show you the exact corporate connection between the digital euro's offline technology and the custody platform used by Citibank, BNP Paribas, and Société Générale, and how Ripple acquired the whole thing for $250 million. The Geographic Limitations Medico-Ripple pipeline. What in the world? This connection is hiding in plain sight, but you need to follow 3 companies to see it. First, Gizike and Devrient. G&D is one of the world's largest printers of physical cash. They've been printing banknotes for central banks for over 170 years. But in late 2025, the ECB selected G&D to build the offline component of the digital euro using something called the Filia protocol. Filia is not an account system like your bank. It's a token-based bearer instrument that lives in your phone's secure element, that tamper-proof chip, allowing you to pay someone via NFC without any internet connection. This is the cash-like privacy feature the ECB keeps promising. When you're offline, no data leaves your device. No ECB, no bank, nothing. Second, Medico, Swiss company, built the harmonized platform, the institutional-grade custody solution for tokenized assets. Clients include Citibank, BNP Paribas, BBVA, and Société Générale. Basically, if a Tier 1 bank wants to hold digital bonds or tokenized securities, they're probably using Medico. Third, and here's the kicker, in May 2023, Ripple acquired Medico for $250 million. So Ripple now owns the custody rails that these European megabanks use for digital assets.
Now, connect the dots. G+D Ventures was a lead investor in Metaco before Ripple bought them, and both G+D and Ripple were founding members of the MasterCard CBDC Partner Program launched in August 2023. Light bulb moment. The company building the offline digital euro hardware has financial ties to the company Ripple acquired, which is the custody platform Europe's biggest banks already use, and they're all sitting in the same MasterCard working group designing CBDC interoperability standards. This isn't conspiracy, this is corporate strategy. Ripple didn't buy Metaco to compete with banks. They bought it to become the plumbing banks need to survive the CBDC transition. The axiology trial, executed code, not white papers. But wait until you hear the actual technical proof. There's this Lithuanian company called Axiology. They're licensed under the EU's DLT pilot regime, basically the regulatory sandbox for blockchain-based securities settlement. In the ECB's wholesale settlement trials concluded November 2024, Axiology was one of the select participants allowed to connect directly to central bank money rails. And here's the smoking gun. Axiology's infrastructure is built on a modified version of the XRP ledger. Let me break down what they actually did, because this is where rubber meets road. They issued a tokenized government bond, not a simulation, a real bond, on the Axiology ledger. The bond moved on the XRPL-based sidechain, which triggered a fiat payment in Target 2, the Eurosystem's real-time gross settlement system. According to the ECB's trial documentation, this proves the XRP ledger's escrow and IOU features are enterprise-grade tools capable of handling sovereign debt obligations. This is executed code in the ECB's regulatory sandbox, not theoretical blockchain marketing. The Bundesbank's trigger solution acted as the API bridge. When the bond moved on Axiology's XRPL sidechain, it generated a cryptographic payment instruction that converted into an ISO 20022 message, the global banking standard, and sent it to Target 2 to settle in actual central bank euros. Think about this setup. The blockchain isn't holding the money. It's orchestrating the logic while the euros move in the safest vault possible, the central bank. This is the blueprint for how sovereign ledgers and crypto rails will interoperate. The XRPL provides the speed and smart contract logic. Target 2 provides the finality and legal tender status.
And you guys, I have a special trick for you, which nobody seems to be using, and I cannot wrap my head around why. Because if you sign up through my link down in the description onto the BTCC exchange, you get a 10% deposit bonus. And now stay with me here. Now, here comes the important part. If you have any trading capital on any other exchange and you move it to your newly created BTCC account, you get on top of your capital you moved another 10% extra trading capital. As an example, if you move or deposit 10K to your account, you get 1K for free. And here is why this is possible. BTCC makes money on trading fees. The more capital you have, the more you trade. The more you trade, the more they earn. So they are literally investing in your trading activity by giving you extra capital up front. And unlike other platforms where bonuses are in the 1 to 3% range, BTCC's bonus is a full 10%. I'm not kidding. I really don't understand why nobody is doing this. To me, it really seems like people sometimes are too lazy or just don't like free money. I kindly ask you to pause this video and take your time to make an account. You can thank me later in the description of this video.
The Siemens 300 million reality check. And here's the part that made me realize this isn't coming, it's already here. In 2024, Siemens issued a 300 million euro digital bond on the Sviat blockchain and settled it via the Bundesbank's trigger solution. Siemens, one of Europe's largest industrial conglomerates, just bypassed traditional securities depositories entirely and settled a 9-figure bond issuance on a blockchain connected to the central bank. BNP Paribas participated. The European Investment Bank issued a $100 million digital bond on the Banque de France's DL3 ledger, a proprietary permissioned blockchain that puts CBDC directly on distributed ledger technology. 64 private institutions participated in these trials, processing over $1.59 billion in settlement value. This changes everything you thought you knew about CBDC timelines. The wholesale backend is live. It's not a pilot anymore. It's infrastructure being stress-tested with real institutional money. The mBridge threat Europe can't ignore. Now, here's the twist that explains the panic. While Europe's been debating privacy frameworks and holding limits, China's been building. Project mBridge, the shared ledger connecting China, Hong Kong, Thailand, UAE, and now Saudi Arabia, reached commercial minimum viable product stage in mid-2024. Unlike SWIFT, which sends messages saying, please move money, mBridge moves tokenized central bank reserves in seconds. For the first time in modern history, a Saudi oil exporter can be paid directly in digital yuan by a Chinese importer with $0 US intermediary and no Western correspondent bank to block the trade. Central bank pilot programs demonstrate that mBridge processed billions in real trade value throughout 2025. Meanwhile, China's CIPS, cross-border interbank payment system, surged past 2.1 trillion yuan equivalent in transaction volume, fueled almost entirely by Russia-China bilateral trade now that Russia's cut off from SWIFT. The technological gap between Eastern and Western CBDC implementations, 4 to 5 years. China's e-yuan already supports programmable smart contracts with expiration dates and spending restrictions, processed 14.2 trillion yuan by September 2025, and has 2.25 billion registered wallets. Europe looked at this data and realized they're not racing against Visa and MasterCard anymore. They're racing against a Sinocentric financial operating system that's technically superior and immune to Western sanctions. The October 2025 infrastructure activation. And here's where it gets crazy with dates. Everyone keeps citing 2019 for the digital euro launch, but the infrastructure rails went live in October 2025. The SEPA rulebook update enforced October 5, 2025, introduced the mandatory hybrid address format. Sounds boring, right? But this forced every European bank to upgrade their data fields for full ISO 20022 compatibility. That's the same messaging standard that XRP, Stellar, and modern CBDCs use for structured machine-readable data transactions. The TIPS, Target Instant Payment Settlement, cross-currency service also launched late 2025, connecting euro settlements with Swedish krona and Danish krone in real time using an atomic settlement model. When a cross-border payment initiates, both currency legs settle simultaneously in central bank money, or the whole transaction fails. This is the blueprint for how sovereign ledgers and crypto rails will interoperate. The XRPL provides the speed and smart contract logic. Target 2 provides the finality and legal tender status. The Apple battle, Europe won. Here's a personal anecdote that shows you how serious this is. Throughout 2025, Apple and the ECB were in a legal standoff. Apple's always locked down the iPhone's NFC chip exclusively for Apple Pay. They make billions from that transaction fee monopoly. But under the EU's Digital Markets Act, the ECB successfully argued that a sovereign currency cannot be held hostage by a California tech company. The ECB demanded direct, fee-free access to the secure element to enable offline digital euro payments. Apple lost. Your iPhone will have a government wallet with the same hardware access as Apple Pay, and Apple can't charge a toll. That's not a software update, that's a power shift. When a central bank can force Apple to open its hardware, you're watching sovereignty being reasserted in real time. Project Agora, the battle for the unified ledger. But the biggest play is happening in the shadows. Project Agora, run by the Bank for International Settlements, involves 7 central banks, including the ECB and Federal Reserve, plus 41 major private financial firms. The goal? Build a unified ledger where central bank money, commercial bank deposits, and tokenized assets all live on one programmable platform. SBI Holdings, Ripple's largest external shareholder, is a confirmed participant. SBI is effectively the voice of XRP inside that room. Here's the strategic fork. One vision is a single giant ledger controlled by central banks. That's the BIS model. The competing vision is thousands of sovereign ledgers that connect via bridge assets in interoperability protocols. That's Ripple's interledger thesis. The ECB's reliance on the trigger solution, linking distinct systems rather than forcing everything onto one database, suggests the interlinked model is winning. That's massively bullish for assets designed to bridge disparate ledgers like XRP, rather than replace them.
The timeline, 2026-2029 reality check. Let me walk you through what actually happens next. Mid-2026, the European Parliament passes the Digital Euro Regulation. The key clause everyone's watching is merchant mandatory acceptance. If the EU mandates that every merchant accepting cards must accept digital euros, that forces 20 million point-of-sale terminals across Europe to upgrade. 2027, real-world pilots begin. Expect tokenized euro assets, bonds, real estate, to launch on sidechains like Axiology's to test the system. This is when the real-world asset, or RWA narrative, stops being DeFi speculation and becomes institutional infrastructure. 2029, full launch. But here's what most analysts miss. The Eurozone effectively splits its money supply into 2 tiers. Tier 1, public money, digital euro. Risk-free, privacy protected for offline use, capped at 3,000 euros. Tier 2, private money, commercial bank tokens or MiCA-compliant stablecoins. Yield-bearing, uncapped, fully programmable. The friction of moving between those tiers and between different currency zones, euro to dollar to yen, creates massive demand for automated market makers and bridge currencies. XRP's speed and sub-cent fees make it the mathematical favorite for high-frequency, low-margin swaps that'll process trillions annually. Closing. The Trojan horse you're not seeing. Here's my final thought, and it's the one that keeps me up at night. The digital euro is feared as a surveillance tool, and look, those concerns are valid. But the unintended consequence is way more interesting. By building a state-backed digital asset that requires wallets, private keys and secure elements, and DLT settlement rails, the ECB is training 340 million Europeans to use the exact same interface that gives them access to the broader crypto economy. The digital euro is the on-ramp. The waterfall overflow mechanism is the exit. And the XRP ledger, sitting there with its axiology integration and ISO 20022 compliance, is the bridge waiting on the other side. The rails are live, the wholesale trials are complete, the October 2025 SEPA mandate is enforced. The only thing left is the marketing campaign they'll call a launch. If you're holding XRP, you're betting on interoperability. If you're holding Bitcoin, you're betting decentralization wins long-term. But if you're holding nothing but euros in a traditional account, you're about to become the unpaid beta tester for the world's largest monetary experiment. Smash that like button if this connected dots you didn't even know existed. Subscribe because when the digital ruble integrates with the digital yuan in 2026, I'll be covering exactly how that parallel financial system forces the West's hand. Drop a comment. Are you in a country running CBDC pilots? What are you actually seeing on the ground? The money war went live in October. Most people just don't know it yet.